Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So I just watched Flora and Ulysses. Let's talk about it. So Flora and Ulysses is a Disney Plus film that is directed by Lena Khan, and this film centers on the character of Flora, who has unfortunately resigned herself to being a cynic and a skeptic because of the difficulties that her parents are facing in their marriage right now. Flora has very much internalized that, and it has changed her perspective of the world. She no longer sees the beauty, the wonder in the world anymore. She's decided to instead observe what's there instead of trying to find those moments of light. It really is a sad and tragic headspace for a 10-year-old to be in, especially for a character who is just so passionate and who has so much love for storytelling, and in particular comic books, because her father is a comic book illustrator, I believe. So she loves comic books. She loves superheroes. Okay, there are a lot of name drops in this film right from the get-go. Right from the get-go. We'll talk about the Disney brainwashing in a second, but right from the get-go, we have a ton of mentions of superheroes, and it seems like that's something that used to fill her with such joy, with such hope, having this superhero who's by her side and who was created by her father. It just made her move with so much more confidence and courage in the world, until unfortunately her worldview was changed by the difficulties in her parents' relationship. So this film basically tells the story of how this girl who's lost that hope, who's lost that spark and that positive outlook of the world, regains it through her relationship, through her newfound friendship with the character of Ulysses, who's this squirrel, who's this non-verbal squirrel who's just minding his business and also happens to be a superhero. Listen, he has a very quick superhero origin story at the beginning of the film where he gets sucked up by this special vacuum or special lawnmower, whatever it was, and he ends up becoming a superhero who can fly and who does all of these other heroics. But possibly his biggest feat is actually restoring the sense of hope in Flora and allowing her to feel much more confident, feel much more positive about her world view. Now that is the essence of this story, and I think it's really admirable for this film to tackle such complex issues in a kids film. In the case of Flora and Ulysses, they've tried to tackle a bit more of a complex matter when it comes to the impact of a broken down relationship on this young child, and how it's changed her world perspective and how it's made her a bit more of a cynic, someone who's lost faith in the hope, the spark that kids usually have when they're younger. And that to me is an added layer of complexity, because again, we don't usually see that, especially for films that are targeted towards such young audiences. And again, it does bring a certain amount of admiration to the attempt to try and tackle these more difficult concepts. The idea of being a cynic to begin with, I mean, this character really is quite grown up. I couldn't help but admire the fact that we have a character like this at the center of this story, because the issues that she faces are pretty real and are pretty relatable to other kids who may be going through similar situations. And so in light of all of that, I have to give props to Matilda Lawler, who portrays the character of Flora, and she does such a great job, because like I said, this is a character who's dealing with a bit more of a complex pile of emotions at this moment in time, with her parents' relationship disintegrating right before her eyes, especially considering that her parents were these creative types who were so passionate and who were so hopeful in their work and in creating these beautiful worlds that they did, even though they were very different worlds, with her father favoring the comic book genre and her mother favoring the romance genre. Either way, she was used to living in this bubble of creativity, and so when it no longer existed in their home, it did affect her world perspective, and the actress has to convey that. Like, the actress at such a young age herself has to convey a character who is going through these complex emotions, and I think she does such a great job of it, whilst at the same time being convincing in her interactions with a CG squirrel. A CG squirrel, because listen, the squirrel himself isn't doing much, okay? He's not even a talking squirrel. He's just CG, he's minding his business. Sometimes he commits these heroic acts, but other times he's just, you know, munching on nuts. Like, literally. Honestly though, as charming as Ulysses is, like, I mean, he's cute. Like, there's no denying that he's adorable, but she really is doing most of the heavy lifting. because she's acting against a CG squirrel. So I have to give props to her for being able to carry that out. I would also say that I was very much convinced by the relationship that Flora had with her parents, and in particular her father George, who is portrayed by Ben Schwartz. I think he was really, really great here as this father figure who kind of is wacky. He's kooky as well. Like I said, he's a comic book writer or illustrator, so it makes total sense. But he goes along on this journey with them, and I think it's really touching to see how similar they are in their personalities. Clearly she's closer to him when it comes to her interests and how fascinated she is with the comic book genre, but it's also clear that she's been inspired to think creatively and to see the bright and beautiful parts of the world due to her parents influencing her in that way. And so when you see them interacting with one another, they do feel like an authentic family, even though they don't look like one. One of my pet peeves when it comes to Hollywood, listen, Hollywood, hear me out for a second here. Why can't you cast actors that look similar to be family members? Why is this impossible? I know that there's, you know, this tension between trying to find the actor or actress who's perfect for the role and trying to build a cast that look related. I know that's difficult, but you're Hollywood. You literally have people from all over the globe gunning to get a role in your film. So why can't you make it happen where they at least look like a cohesive family? Or at the very least, you could have kept the same cast but dyed someone's head, because we have 3 different heads of hair here. No one looks related. I mean, it was a small pet peeve. Okay, listen, I know this is a me problem, but Hollywood, come on, work with me here. Whilst we're talking of the supporting cast, I also very much enjoyed Benjamin Evan Ainsworth's performance as the character William. Okay, his name is William, not Billy. But I liked him. You know, usually when it comes to these side characters, if I'm being honest, they're not my favorite. They tend to be annoying. They tend to be inconsequential, but he had a little story of his own that was very touching and very profound. It did actually help Flora in her journey to having a more positive outlook on the world and really appreciating what she had with her family, seeing what William had gone through. So he actually did add something substantial, and he wasn't just the, you know, running gag of the whole film, even though he was quite funny with his temporary blindness due to his hysterity. I really enjoyed the character overall, and if there is a sequel for this film, which I can imagine would be very easy to set up, I would like to see him return, because for once he did a great job. He wasn't irritating to me at all. And now let's talk about the villain, who's portrayed by Danny Pudi or Puddy, not quite sure how to pronounce it, but I'm very familiar with his work on Community, so I had a big bright smile when I saw him in this film, because I'm a huge fan of his role in Community. Abed is a classic, legendary character, okay, make no mistake. But apparently, you know, after having done my research on the director of this film, she actually worked with him previously on her directorial debut, so it's kind of like a reunion in that sense. But I think he was great here. I mean, when it comes to how his role was written as a villain, there's barely anything there. If we're being honest, he portrays the character of Miller, who is an animal control officer who basically has a grudge against squirrels, because as it is very quickly, very succinctly established in this newspaper article that he happens to read at one point, he seemed to have some sort of backstory with squirrels who he can get a handle off of. And ultimately, I think those squirrels kind of scarred him for life, whether they scarred him in actuality, like literally, or just mentally, I don't know. But he has a grudge against squirrels, okay? So Ulysses is definitely a problem for him, which is why he goes on this crazy rampage trying to catch Ulysses by any means necessary, including breaking so many laws, just so many laws. There's not a care in the world for the laws of wherever that is that they're living. This is a kid's film, it's fine. But man, the laws that this guy broke, it was crazy. There's no way. What's your jurisdiction? Whatever, I need to move on. So yes, even though on paper this character wasn't very well written in terms of giving him, you know, any three-dimensional personality of some sort, he was very much a 2D, you know, cartoon villain character. But I think Danny Pudi or Puddy very much sells the role. He adds charm to it. He's very charismatic on screen, so he makes it work. Now that I spent all this time yapping about the human characters, let's get into Ulysses. Let's get into the other half of Flora and Ulysses, because like I said, even though Ulysses is basically just a CG squirrel, okay, he's very limited in the personality that he can convey, because he is just a CG squirrel overall who can't even speak. It's not like Alvin and the Chipmunks where at least they have dialogue so you can establish their personalities much more easily. But in the case of Ulysses, it is about other people reacting to him, and also with the animation itself, which is very, very impressive, because overall when it comes to this film, it does feel quite cheap. Like, it does feel quite cheap. It's somewhere in the middle between a Disney Channel original film and a theatrically released Disney film. I think it's somewhere in the middle there, where obviously they want to elevate the Disney Channel original film so that it can fit the, you know, premium feel of Disney Plus, but they don't want to spend so much money because this film isn't going to have a box office of its own. So I think it's kind of reached that middle point. But I will have to say, when it comes to the character of Ulysses, they definitely didn't skimp out on him, because he's animated very, very well. And even though the general feel of this film very much gives me Disney Channel original movie circa 2005 vibes, I do think that one clear distinction of that is the quality in animation when it comes to realizing the character of Ulysses. Having said that though, it seems as though that Disney Studios threw all of their money towards Ulysses and none of it towards the cat. The evil cat who's also in the picture and who attacks pretty much everyone. That cat is the true villain of the story, okay? And that cat at times looks pretty bad in terms of its CG rendering. It looks pretty bad. At times it looks impressive. I think in the beginning of the film it was okay, but when you see the cat move and when it hisses and everything, it looks shoddy. It looks pretty bad, okay? Not the same amount was spent on the cat as it was on Ulysses, but at the end of the day, who cares, because Ulysses is the star of the show and not that damn cat. And finally, as I hinted at right at the beginning of this review, superheroes play a massive role in this film, which makes complete sense because we have a character right at the center of it who loves the comic book genre and loves superheroes, including some of the superheroes that her father has created himself. But we do have some more familiar superheroes who are very much present here, a lot of them coming from the Marvel roster, because you gotta have that Disney synergy. Listen, Disney didn't buy a ton of IP just so it could promote other people's IP. Why would it do that? Why would it spend all of its time talking about Batman or Wonder Woman when we have Black Panther, when we have Captain America, Captain Marvel, Iron Man, all of which make an appearance here? So it makes complete sense that she would admire these superheroes, because obviously we're trying to work within the Disney family, and Disney has some really deep pockets to reach into when it comes to its collection of IP, so why not sprinkle it in there? And I find it very interesting as well that we even have a non-superhero related IP nod towards Star Wars, because George has actually reprogrammed the doorbell to their family home's door to sound like the Darth Vader theme from Star Wars. So that's a nice little touch there. Again, another example of some Disney synergy going on here. And again, why not? They have their deep pockets. Why not reach in and have a few nods to various IPs that they already own and that are already present on their platform? Although I did seem to hear a nod to perhaps Superman, where Flora mentioned that there was this superhero who goes and visits his father's ghost-like projection in the middle of a wintry tundra. Is that Superman? You guys can let me know if that's a reference to Superman down in the comments below. It sounded like something that I've seen from Man of Steel, so that's why I was like, maybe that's a Superman reference. Maybe that is a sprinkling of DC in this film, although it was very vague because of obvious reasons, so perhaps it isn't. Overall, what can I say? This film is adorable, okay? It's clearly targeted towards a very young audience, and I think that audience would very much enjoy this film. It has very fun moments. The characters are quite likable. You have a sprinkling of a few jokes in there that even made me chuckle, and then at the center of it all you have this adorable squirrel character. I mean, it's just catnip for kids, honestly. Without a doubt, at this point Disney has perfected its formula for kids films, and this is no different. This very much falls into that category. Although if I did have a criticism for the film, it would be that perhaps we could stray from that formula a little bit. Like, maybe one of these days Disney will give us their answer to a Paddington, which is kind of a bit more of an elevated kids film, a bit more of an elevated family film within the genre. But in terms of the film that we do have on this platform, I think it will very much connect with its desired audience. And so with all of that being said, I'm going to be giving Flora and Ulysses a 6 out of 10. Let's be real, my rating doesn't really matter for this film because it's targeted towards young kids and they're gonna have a fun time with it regardless. I just wish that Disney would kind of stray from their usual formula. Like I said, the kind of Disney Channel original movie feeling and give us something that's a bit more premium, a bit more prestige, like a Paddington. Because I think they are more than capable of doing so. I think they put a lot of their energy towards their other verticals, like for example, their live action remakes and the Marvels and the Star Warses of it all. If they could just work on continuing to push the boundaries on this front as well as the others that they have to work with, and they have a lot to work with, then I think there could be some really great things coming to the platform. But that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Flora and Ulysses, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of the film down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.